Hello everyone. So today we're making tiramisu cookies. They're gluten-free and dairy-free and super delicious. So the first thing we're starting off is 220 grams of melted, slightly cooled butter. So I'm just using the Stork butter blocks, which is dairy-free. But you can use whatever dairy-free butter you usually use. Or normal butter if you can eat normal butter. And then to that, we're going to add 200 grams of brown sugar. So I've got some dark brown soft sugar here. And then 200 grams of white sugar. So this is going to make a lot of cookies. I think it made about 16 to 20 cookies. Obviously, I've doubled the recipe that I normally use. So if you want a normal amount of cookies, you would half it. So 120 grams of butter for about 8 to 10 cookies, and 100 grams of white sugar and 100 grams of brown sugar. So just bear that in mind that you need to half the ingredients that I'm saying if you want 8 to 10 cookies. But it depends how many you want to make, and they're super delicious, so you could definitely make more. And then this is just some white granulated sugar. So once you've got that all into your bowl, you're going to want to mix that. So I'm just using my stand mixer to mix it, but you could use just a whisk. I'm just going to whisk that for a minute until it's all combined. To our sugar butter mixture, we're going to add our eggs. So I'm going to add 2 eggs. Again, if you're halving it, you would just add 1 egg. And I'm just cracking these into a separate bowl first so that I don't get any shell into my cookies. So I'm just adding that. We're also going to want to add some vanilla. So I've got some vanilla bean paste here, and I'm going to use about 2 teaspoons of it. The thing with vanilla is you can't really go wrong with more. And I like the vanilla bean paste just because it gives off a slightly stronger flavour. So I think I actually only used 1 very heaped teaspoon there. But it does give off a stronger flavour than vanilla extract or essence. So with that, you probably would want 2 teaspoons. Unless you're halving it, then you could just do 1. Anyway, then once we've got that mixed in as well, I'm going to add my flour. I'm doing 460 grams of plain gluten-free flour. So again, if you're halving this recipe for 8 to 10 cookies, you would do 230 grams of the flour. But yeah, I'm using plain gluten-free flour. I'm using Dove's Farm plain gluten-free flour, which is a flour I usually use. I buy that from Tesco, but you can use whatever normal flour you use for your dietary requirements. And I just store mine in a container like this, just to stop any kind of insects or anything. And I go through a lot of flour, so I don't really need to worry about that. Then I'm going to add a teaspoon of xanthan gum and a teaspoon of baking powder and a teaspoon of baking soda and a teaspoon of salt as well. Well, roughly a teaspoon. So again, if you are halving it, you do half a teaspoon xanthan, half a teaspoon baking powder, half a teaspoon baking soda. Make sure all of those are gluten-free if that's your requirements, because sometimes they'll put gluten in baking powder and baking soda. And I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons of espresso powder. I'm using, I believe, Nespresso espresso powder. This is the salt I'm using sea salt flakes. But you can use whatever salt you like. I really like the taste of the Nespresso espresso powder. In baked goods, I never drink espresso, so I've never had it just on its own. But when I'm drinking, when I'm making baked goods, this is what I'm using. So that you can see me pouring it in. It always smells delicious. So yeah, if you're doing a normal batch, if you're doing 8 to 10 cookies, you just do 1 tablespoon of the powder for the espresso powder. Anyway, I'm just going to mix those ingredients slightly in on the top and then get that all mixed in the mixer. So I'll show you what this looks like so you know what consistency you're looking for. So I've got my paddle attachment on and my KitchenAid, and I'm just going to put it, I don't know, about halfway. So this is it when it's done, and you can see that it's nice and gooey and runny and it smells really, really good. So then I'm going to get 2 lined trays. I actually end up using 4 lined trays, but I do it in 2 batches. And I'm going to use a cookie scoop and just scoop the cookie scoop worth of cookie batter. This is actually an ice cream scoop, but the same thing, onto my tray. They're not all completely the same size, but that doesn't bother me. But if you wanted them to be the same size, you just need to make sure you kind of level them out. And whilst I'm doing this, I have my oven preheating to about 180 degrees Celsius. And it's a fan oven. So I'm just doing the other tray. And like I say, you're going to need to do that kind of multiple times because if you're doing the full recipe because of the amount of cookies. But once I've got these scooped out, I'm getting these into the fridge. And I'm going to want to cool them for about 15 or so minutes. Here's them in the oven once they're baked and they smell delicious. So you bake them for about 12 minutes. And then I'm getting the topping ready. So after 15 minutes in the fridge, you can get them into the oven for about 12 minutes. Yeah, and here's me making the frosting for it. So for this, I'm doing 2 pots of the Philadelphia dairy-free cream cheese. I think 1 pot of the Flora double cream and about 200 grams of icing sugar. So that's my first pot in. I'm just getting 2 of those pots in. I never have this dairy-free Philadelphia plain, but when you're making it into cream cheese icing or cheesecake and stuff like that, it works really well. Of course, if you could have dairy, you could do mascarpone cream or cheese instead, which would be the normal ingredient. But for dairy-free people, this is what I suggest instead. So I just emptied out the end of this bag of icing sugar and then added a bit more in. And then I do get the cream in as well. But first I'm going to mix the icing sugar and the cream cheese. I would really like to get one of those shields that goes on top of the bowls to stop the icing sugar exploding everywhere when I do this, but I don't have one yet. But I can definitely see how it comes in handy, because I usually end up with icing sugar and flour everywhere. Yeah, this is the double cream I'm talking about. This one's really good. It whips up really well. So I'm just going to turn this up, get the cream in there, and then it will whip up in like less than a minute. It's really great. This double cream really does add like double cream. I use it in these kind of sweet dessert things, but I also use it in soups and stuff as well, and it works well in that as well. So you'll see very quickly it thickens up and we have a nice pipeable consistency. So what we're looking for is something that we can pipe onto the cookies. Otherwise it would be quite hard to get it on there and it would just run it all off. Generally it's better if you keep it cooler though, because if it does get too warm it can start to kind of go runny. Just cleaning up the table around the KitchenAid quickly after all the icing sugar's gone everywhere. And I've put this on fast forward, so there you can see that we're getting towards the right consistency. I decided to let it what's the one I'm looking for, whisk up for a little bit longer. So that looks about good. We can see that it's leaving marks in it, and it holds on to the whisk. So you'll see what I mean when I turn it off now. It will hold on nicely to the whisk. Yeah, there you can see all the marks that it's making. It's leaving a trail. And if I lift it up, the cream holds on to the whisk nicely. So we know it's all nice and pipeable now. So next, obviously you're going to need your cookies to bake and cool down. Definitely need to be cool before you apply this. But once they've cooled down, we can get to decorating. So I had mine cooling overnight. I'm just getting them off a plate and onto this paper so that I can decorate them. And they came out wonderful and taste really good. You can see they're nice and golden. They were really nice and chewy. Perfect cookies. Some of them did bake into each other a little bit, but I didn't mind because we're going to cover them up with icing anyway, so you won't really be able to tell. So once you've got your cookies ready, you need to get your icing into a bag. I use the Wilton disposable bags. I just chop off the end, put my icing tip in, and fill it out with my icing, or frosting, or whatever you want to call it. Like that. And then I kind of shake the bag so all of it goes to the bottom. And then, and I'm using actually a small piping tip with just a small hole at the bottom. I wouldn't know what the name is, but it's a pretty basic piping tip, so you could probably have it. But if you don't have that one, you could definitely use a different piping tip, or even you could just cut off the end of the bag and use that. Definitely doesn't need to be perfect. And then I'm just going to start in the middle and swirl the icing around. I started off quite slow, but once you get into the groove of it, it becomes quite easy. And don't worry if there's a few gaps, because we're going to add some cocoa powder to the top, so you won't be able to notice too much. So I'll speed through doing the rest of them. And this style of cookies super in at the moment, I think from crumble cookies, I think has made it quite popular, this icing on the cookies. I'm not sure who really started it, but it's really cute. It looks really nice. And it's also super delicious. And adds a bit of difference to the cookie. You don't normally, well, at least I don't normally decorate a cookie, but it's fun to decorate a cookie. Makes it a bit more fun. I saw a few people have done like a cinnamon swirl style cookie this way as well, which sounds really good, or like a cinnamon roll kind of style. That's really good. And I definitely think you could decorate lots of cookies in this way. I just really fancy tiramisu. I really like tiramisu, and I think a tiramisu cookie just sounded really good, and it was really good. So yeah, piping does not need to be perfect. Once you've done that, probably the easiest way, oops, drop the lid of the dark cocoa powder. Probably the easiest way would be to sieve the cocoa powder on top of it, but my sieve wasn't in shape to be used. So instead I just break it out in my fingers and sprinkle on top. But if you have a sieve, definitely just sieve it onto the cookies. So anyway, yeah, I'm using dark cocoa powder because it's the only one that's dairy free. and that I could see the other day when I was in the shop, so I already had that one actually, but that's the one that I'm using. It's dark cocoa powder. And then yeah, I'll just crush it with my fingers and then sprinkle it. So I kind of clean off my fingers. And then I'm just going to break up the cocoa powder with my fingers and sprinkle it onto the cookies. If you wanted like a cute pattern, you could put like block out the center with something like a heart and then go around it, and then you would have a heart on your cookie. So there's lots of different options. As you can see, it kind of covers up any imperfections that there might be in the cookie or the icing and just makes them look really nice and pretty. So this is only half of the cookies that I have, so yeah. 8 cookies is about half the batch, but I did make another 8, I just decorated them separately. Perfect. And then here's me breaking up the cookie. So I hope you enjoyed, I hope you give them a try, and if you do give them a try, let me know how you find them. I found them super delicious, and super fun to make, and a nice kind of autumny treat. So yeah, let me know how it goes, and I hope you like this video. Thank you. Bye.